start going through a PowerPoint presentation. If you have any questions as we're going through, feel free to stop me.
Okay.
If there is any questions that you want to ask about a particular objection, we'll handle all of those at the end, kind of after we go through what the basis of a objection is, which is what we're going to be learning about today.
Let me ask you a question, Jordan. I don't want to cut you off, but if it's just me and you, if you want to reschedule, I don't have a problem with that.
No, because we're recording it, so
Okay, cool.
we're going to be putting it back on our page, so that way people can go back and look at it later on.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Linda's connecting too.
Yep.
So that'll be good. All right. So first thing first is, what is an objection and how do we overcome it? What does that look like? So the 4 steps to overcoming objections are: you listen, you understand, you respond, and you confirm. So those are the 4 steps to overcoming any objection, no matter what the objection is. And guys, it's hard for me to watch the chat and do the slideshow at the same time. So please feel free to unmute yourselves if you have a question and just, keep it casual. So when you are overcoming objections, your first reaction is usually to jump and respond immediately, especially if you're in this business, you're a fixer, you want to fix things right away. But it is very, very, very important that we learn to stop and listen fully to what it is our clients are really saying. What are they truly objecting to? And if they are objecting to you as a person, we can't react defensively. A lot of times there's negative emotions that come up, but what we have to do is really stay focused on, okay, what is it they are saying? If they're saying something about me, how can we word this? What is the root cause of all of this? And really take the time to listen. That's a huge part of overcoming an objection, is just listening. Because a lot of times, if you listen and let them just keep talking, they will come to a solution for their objection themselves. So the next part is understanding. So understanding the objection comes after you listen. So many objections hide underlying issues that the buyer can't or isn't ready to articulate. Often the truest issue isn't what the buyer first tells you, and we're going to go into that a little bit deeper later on. So you also you've got to be willing to talk to people and just really understand where they're coming from. Ask the right questions. The more questions you ask, the better understanding you are going to get. But with a lot of people, what you have to do is you have to ask permission to ask the questions, and they are going to feel like they then have control because they're the ones with the objection, but you're trying to better understand it. So, hey, I hear you're saying this. Can I ask you a couple deeper questions about that? Get that permission, and that way, the questions to ask, what else? Why? Clarification. That sort of deeper understanding is going to help you be able to respond properly, which is our next slide. So once you're confident that you've uncovered your client's objections, you address the most important objection first, and they will be sure to tell you what their most important objection is. There will be no doubt in your mind. And once you work through the greatest barrier, a lot of times the rest of the stuff just kind of falls into place. But if it doesn't, then you just move on to the next. And that's going to look differently every time. It's going to look different for every objection as far as what's the most important, what falls in line, what doesn't. Any questions up till here?
No, I do want to say the one key thing to point out on this, and all the objection handling classes I've ever taught to my salespeople, everything you're on is spot on, right? You have to understand the objection. You have to clarify and restate it. The key thing about listening is listening to respond, not listening to speak. If you decide that you can overcome the objection before they're even done talking, like you said, you will miss everything that could possibly be the real objection. You're going to miss the details. So this is really great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and we'll get more into details a little bit later on in the presentation, just to kind of go through and dig a little bit deeper again, this is supposed to be a very interactive class. So if you guys come across something that you're like, hey, somebody said this to me and I didn't know what to say, or, we were talking about this and I didn't know what to do, we'll go through that. And I've also got some Tom Ferry scripts at the very end as well that we're going to go through. So once you respond properly, this is the most important step, and it is something that is missed all the time. You confirm that you've satisfied the objection. If you haven't satisfied the objection, it's still there and you think it's good, but unless you say, hey, I heard you say this, we did this, where are we at with how you were feeling about, X, Y, or Z? Are we still there? Do we need to do something more? Are you okay? Like, what is that? Because people will smile and nod at you all day long, but you've got to be the one to ask the hard questions. Is this really okay? Are you really okay? So, you ask if the buyer is happy with your solution, explain the solution further if you need to. And if the client isn't ready, don't try to force a commitment. If they're still not okay, don't ask, well, why aren't you okay? We handled it. No, that means you got to ask more questions. That means you didn't get to the full root cause. And you got to go back to step one, listen further, understand further, respond again, and then try and confirm again. If they're not ready to commit, don't force it. Keep talking, keep listening. Questions so far? All right. So there's 4 main types of objections, and they come from these 4 basic things: need, urgency, trust, and money. Just about any objection that you are going to face is going to come from one of these 4 root causes. So when you are going through and listening and understanding, you also want to categorize, okay, is this a need? Is this an urgency? Is it about trust? Is it about money? And being able to go from there is how you're going to succeed in being able to respond appropriately. So need, let's break that down. So our clients need our guidance, and many times they don't even know the right questions to ask. I've heard several people, clients, mentees, you name it, and they're like, I don't even know what to ask. When I'm sitting here asking, what questions do you guys have? Don't even know. Don't know enough to know the questions to ask. So a lot of times we want to use the 5 why method. And it's also, known as like a 5-question method, different things like that to really establish what is the true need here. Because a lot of times, just like we talked about before, the real need can be buried deeper beneath other objections. And I think that's really laid out here in this example. And it's a brilliant example, I think. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be creative enough to come up with one for real estate, but hopefully y'all will help me with that. So let's say a prospect says to you, we need more training for our IT staff because we're receiving too many complaints about bad service. Here's how it might look using the 5 why method. We want to ask the question why 5 times. So why are you receiving too many complaints about your service? Prospect says, because response times are too slow. Why are the response times slow? Because our staff always seems backed up no matter what we do. Why is the staff backed up always backed up? See, we're digging deeper. Because requests come in that are deemed urgent that really aren't, and the ones that are urgent don't get immediate response. So we're always reacting like crazy every minute of the day. Why can't you differentiate between the really urgent problems and the not so urgent problems? Well, because we don't have definitions of what that constitutes, and we don't have sufficient job ticket management system to keep it straight if we did. Why don't you have that system in place, and how can you help keep it sorted? So we're at 5 questions, and we can still dig deeper. Because we looked at it 2 years ago and we didn't need it, but we're twice the size and have so much more volume. No one's brought it up again with the COO, with Jane or the COO who makes all the decisions. Why hasn't it been brought up? Silence. There's the issue. So is it training for the IT that we need, Or should we re-engage Jane about how job ticket management systems should improve to improve response times, reduce complaints, et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of goes into why something that seems so trivial, and like, an easy solution. Okay, more job training, cool. But that really wouldn't solve the problem. What we want to do is we want to get to the root cause by asking questions. Why questions are great. You just have to phrase them correctly depending on the personality type that you're talking to, which is what we talked about last month. If you're talking to a D personality, ask them why, just straight. If you're talking to an I personality, well, tell me more about that, because they like to talk. An S personality, how do you feel about this? Why do we feel this way? Let's talk a little bit more. You gotta be a therapist. For a C personality, that's also more direct, like, hey, why? What are the numbers saying about this? What is, bring it back to numbers, bring it back to something that is really tangible for a C personality. When using the 5 why method, you keep the personalities in mind, and you also keep logic in mind. You want to get the agreement of a desired outcome. You want to involve the right team. You want to employ good logic, allow leeway to people as they answer the why, because a lot of times people don't know why they feel a certain way. They don't know why they have an objection. They just know that they do. So allow them the grace and help guide them as to what that really looks like. And realize that you might need a bigger process to uncover the root, i.e. bringing in your mentor, bringing in your broker, somebody with more experience, because you may not know the right questions to ask, and that's okay. That's why we're here. A big part of this and big part of what we do is involving the right team. A lot of people ask us questions that have nothing to do with what we actually do. I can't tell you how many times I get asked a lender question or a title question, and we have to steer them to the right team to handle that objection. Well, I'm really concerned about my monthly payment. Let's talk to your lender about that. Get them to the right team and help uncover that. Well, I'm really concerned about, there possibly being title defects or, encroachments or easements or stuff like that. Okay, let's talk to our title people about that and see what we can come up with. That's a huge part of our job. We are transaction management. And if we can learn to do that, we are going to be well on our way. So urgency or lack thereof is another huge objection category that we come into. So you've got to be able to build a relationship and develop the trust and be able to properly convey without being too salesy why there is urgency. How do you do this? You establish a need. If there's a need, there's urgency. So waiting for the right time, that borders on the line of a condition, but you got to figure out, you got to be able to ask the right questions as far as what would be the right time. In an ideal world, let's take, X, Y, or Z out. What would be the right time? And then establish the urgency that way, based on their response. Does that all make sense? So another way to address urgency, move you guys over here, is the rational impact is all about determining ROI and building the business case for moving forward. If you've done your needs discovery properly, you should be in a position to present numbers that clearly demonstrate the impact of your solution. So it goes back to the needs, right? And it depends on who you're talking to, rational versus emotional. So rational people are going to be your D's and your C's. The emotional impact is going to be your I's and your S's. So you guys see how this is all coming together, where personalities and then what an objection truly is really are woven very, very tightly together. So emotional impact are people buy with their hearts and justify with their heads. The emotional impact of a solution is just as important as the numbers, especially to those personality types, could be even more so. So you got to uncover the emotional drivers, focus on what the prospect truly wants to achieve, whether their aspirations go beyond the pain that is this objection right here. So it could be uncomfortable for them to sell right now because they've got an emotional attachment to the house. Okay, how can we overcome this? What can we do? What is your goals moving forward? What are your long-term goals? What does that look like? And how does selling this house or not selling this house impact those goals? Does that all make sense? Okay. All right, lack of trust is another big one, especially in our industry. We have kind of a bad rep of being salespeople and what that entails. A lot of people compare us to used car salesmen. We're just in it to make the sale. We only care about our commission checks. We don't truly care about people. And being able to overcome that, especially in the beginning when you're mainly talking to strangers, you don't have a huge sphere, maybe you maybe don't have a lot of people who already trust you because you're new. How do you establish that trust? And what does that come down to? And what does it look like? And how can you really handle that objection of trust? Because what it comes down to is buyers or sellers believing that what you say is what you can do. It mitigates risk and gets you closer to the sale if you can build this trust. But it's about building and earning. It's not just given. Even when you start getting it more established. Sorry, guys. There's fire alarm. They're practicing, yeah.
Testing, I guess. She about jumped out of her skin, everybody.
I did.
Literally.
They warned me too that it might go off, but a little different when it actually does. Sorry. So you build trust the old-fashioned way. You earn it. It's not just given. Even when you are established, I still have to earn trust with every single one of my clients, whether they're referred to me, whether they are a past client, whether they are, it doesn't matter. You earn your trust, and you've got to make sure that you are really worthy of that trust, because it's huge. This is people's lives. Like the largest purchase that they ever make, you're in charge of. The largest sale that they ever make, you're in charge of. So you got to make sure that you're really there, and that they have that trust in you. To help earn that trust. And I am not used to working on a small screen. So you start with research. The more knowledge you have about their company, what they do, and the more knowledge you have about your company and what you do, the more people are going to trust you. Know your numbers. I cannot say this enough. Know your numbers. Know how many homes are on the market. Know the percentage. Know how many months of inventory we have. Know how to calculate that. Know your numbers. If you start spewing out numbers to people and you say, hey, look, yeah, it's a seller's market and we've got to really go in and we've got to be aggressive. Well, why is it a seller's market? Because we only have 2 months worth of inventory. There's so many homes on the market in the city you're looking in. And of those homes that are on the market, only this many are still available that don't have contracts or are pending or anything like that. Know your numbers, y'all. They are so easy to find. They're on RAIN. RAIN comes out every month with a year over year based on month statistic. Sorry, if this fire alarm goes off one more time, I'm about to bolt right out my skin.
Better stop, drop, and roll.
Right? They've got a city inspector here. I'm at the Gather in Virginia Beach, and they've got a city inspector here. Okay. So you got to be genuine too, and show true interest in them as people. Now, of course, this is going to look differently depending on the personality type that you are working with, right? But so many people just go through the motions, and what's really going to set you apart as a realtor in your business is being able to truly relate to people, show a genuine interest in them, be there for them. It's about building relationships with these people, whether they're ready to buy or sell right now or not. Continue to build that relationship with them. I can't tell you how many times I've met with somebody and they weren't quite ready, but a year later they called me because I kept up with them. I sent them a card. I became friends with them on Facebook. You know, they remember stuff like that when you show a true, genuine interest in them, that they are not just a sale. They are not just a number to you. They're not just your paycheck. They're true people, and you've got to be able to show that true, genuine interest. So balance inquiry and advocacy. Find the balance between asking questions and talking about your offerings. One of the best ways to advocate is telling stories. I love sharing stories, as a lot of you probably know, because you get me on a story and I will just go. But sharing relevant stories and examples shows how you've helped similar business and the best way to build credibility. So stories are endearing and tangible way to demonstrate the intangible. Now, a lot of you are like, well, I'm brand new. I don't have any stories. Use our stories. Listen to your mentors. Listen to the agents talk in the office. Listen to different podcasts. Listen to agents who have been doing this and get their stories and use them. Don't make them your own, because we don't lie. That's an integrity issue. But you can say, oh, I've heard of this happening. Y'all, even just follow the Hampton Roads Mastermind page. You will get story upon story upon story. There was just one this weekend where, hey, look, I know the process of selling your home is stressful. So stressful, in fact, that somebody I know had an agent show up to a home inspection where the seller had left their baby on accident. Y'all, true story. People get stressed. And now that's a story that I can tell my sellers, like, look, I know you are stressed. I know you are so stressed. You can't be this stressed though. Like, no matter how stressed you are not stressed enough to leave your baby at home during a home inspection for the buyers for 15 minutes. So it's a story. Use it. Listen to people if you don't have your own. And then money. So the money objection is really common, no matter what field of business you're in, but especially in ours because it's sales. So price pressure is really severe. However, you can overcome any price objection, get your full fees, and avoid discounting by following these guidelines, because that's a huge part of our business. Especially sellers right now are very keen on not paying our commissions, or at least our full commissions, or paying buyer's agents full commissions. So we want to be able to fight for our right to put food on the table for our families. So what does that look like? Money talks. You listen fully and you confirm that money is the issue. So that goes back to what we were talking about at first, right? Establishing the need. The need is money. Okay, how can we handle that? When your prospect raises a concern about money, listen fully and start making sure it's the issue. Price objections often mask non-money issues that lie under the surface. So you want to make sure that it is truly money. Avoid talking about cost structure. Often someone will ask you to break down the pricing into billable hours so they can understand better. Y'all don't do this. It's a trap, it's a rabbit hole, because what they're trying to do is see what they can cut out. So what people are paying for and what they don't understand is they are paying for our expertise and our experience, not necessarily billable hours. And that is a huge part of what we do and why it makes us different. Yes, we can break it down to hourly rates. And if you take the average home price in Hampton Roads and you break it down and you said, okay, if you earned this much and you sold this many homes, this is approximately how much you make an hour. Yes, you could do that. On average, it equals about $150 an hour. Is that realistic? No, because we do put in so much more than the actual transaction. You guys are here putting in the time to learn and train, and that's not going into any particular transaction, but it's still time put into your business. So they are paying for your expertise and your experience, not billable hours. So don't concede to lower your price without altering the deliverables. So what that means is, okay, first of all, don't ever lower your price, really ever, because especially with sellers, they're going to be like, hey, look, it's such a hot seller's market. We can just put it on and sell it ourselves. Yeah, you probably could get a contract all by yourselves. But then are you going to pay a buyer's agent's commission? Okay, cool. So you're paying somebody to argue against you. And if I lower my commission right now, that's my money that we are negotiating. Nothing's going to get more close to me than my money. Yet, I'm not going to argue with you about that. So then why am I going to argue against somebody else for your money? That wouldn't make me a strong negotiator. I'm a strong negotiator because I'm fighting for my money to show you how much I'm going to fight for your money as well. If I don't fight for mine, how am I going to fight for yours? That's what you really want to say to people. And they get that. They're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But you also want to ask them, okay, so if I did take a reduced commission, what is that going to look like? Am I going to do less marketing? Am I not going to do professional photos? Am I going to do, am I not going to talk to the attorney for you? Are you going to handle the sale by yourself? Like, what does that look like truly and tangibly? Because there's so much more that goes into it than putting a sign in the yard and a lockbox on the door. There's a lot more that goes into it. Also, this is really for anything, any sort of objection, but especially money. Talk to the decision maker. Always talk to the decision maker. If you're going to a listing appointment, if you are talking to a buyer, make sure that whoever is making the decision is in there with you guys. If you're talking to an S personality who is married but their husband is away, it's going to be a hard sale because they're going to have to talk to their decision maker about everything. That's just the way it is. Anytime you go to a listing appointment or a buyer's appointment, ask them, be like, all right, who am I meeting? Is that everybody who's on the deed or title? Is that all the decision makers? And people are going to be like, decision makers? Yeah, whoever's going to be involved in making a decision about this transaction. Talk to them. You guys, like, for real. So here is a very common objection. This is from Tom Ferry. If I list my home and buy my next home from you, will you cut your commission? And this is what we just talked about with the last slide. I got a little ahead of myself. So if an agent is willing to cut his or her commission just like that, how well do you think they're going to hold up when it comes to negotiating best possible price for your home? Straight from Tom Ferry. If you guys don't know who Tom Ferry is, look him up, learn his scripts. We're going to go through a couple, if y'all don't have any of your own objections, just to kind of look at what he does and what he says. Half of the real estate industry loves him. Half of them hate him. People who love him tend to be doing more business. So I'm going to err on the side of what he does. But by understanding the common types of sales objections, you can really recognize the issue sooner. And the sooner you do it, time is money. Understanding will allow you to quickly apply a strategy and understand, address, and discuss, and ultimately overcome sales objections. Allowing you to close more deals faster. And the faster you can overcome an objection, the more confidence people have in you, because time is money, and people tend to think that if you can overcome things quickly, you're that much more qualified for the job. So dive deeper into some Tom Ferry scripts. So this is a common objection, especially right now, believe it or not. I get asked this all the time because I run true comps. So people ask, because they're interviewing multiple agents, so why is your price for my house so much lower than the other agents that we've talked to? I mean, they have comps that show a higher prices than yours. So there's a big difference in the way that I operate. I am looking to truly help people. Yes, I run a comparative market analysis. Yes, I look at all of the comps. And yes, I want them to get top dollar, because if they get top dollar, I get top dollar. The more they get paid, the more I get paid. It's a win-win. But I do not want to overprice a home, especially in this market, because if it's on the market for more than a week, y'all, you've done something wrong. There's something wrong with the price. Because I'm here to not get it listed. And this is what I tell people. Look, I'm not here to get it listed. Lots of agents are just begging for business right now. They're begging for listings. I'm not here to get it listed. I'm here to get it sold. And this is the price that it's going to sell at, because I've looked at what appraisers look at. And that's essentially what Tom Ferry is saying in this script, y'all. You're not here to get it listed. You're here to get it sold, because that's what their goal is, hopefully. So I'll sell my home when the value goes up. Is this truly an objection? If you ask me, it's more of a condition. A condition is not something that you can really overcome, because if you can bring money out of it, you can say, okay, well, if money had no bearing on this, when would you sell? Oftentimes they don't have an answer, because it's a condition, because they've got something else going on that they're not ready. So we got to dig deeper than what that is really going over. So yeah, no, it's a condition. You can't overcome the conditions, but ask more questions. Ask the whys. What would you do if you could get your price? And if money wasn't an issue, what would that look like? Questions, comments, concerns. We're about halfway through the class, y'all.
It's really an objection is really because they haven't heard the value as to why yet, right? It's like a no doesn't mean no. A no just means not yet. I need to hear more, right? You haven't told them what they need to hear to work with you. And price is always the easiest objection for people to use, because it's the most black and white, right? They have, so it's really just a comment. It's not a question. And I just want to say you're doing a great job so far. Thank you. I know you've sold a whole lot more houses than I do, but I've sold a whole lot of stuff over the years, and it's amazing how much similarity there is, because sales is sales, right? It's about you and the value. What we need to do is build a feature, a benefit, and the bridge between it, right? The benefit of doing business with you, Jordan Hoskins, or me, Mike Johnson, to help sell your home or help you buy a home, and here's why.
Exactly. It's building your foundation of why they should choose you. And sales is sales, just like you said. No matter what you're selling, these basic principles still apply. So yeah. Anybody have, before we go into more Tom Ferry stuff, does anybody have any objections that they've come across that they would think of? If you were a buyer or seller, what objections would you have? Let's make it a little interactive.
So I guess the biggest objection that I could see coming up right now, and the hardest is, I haven't picked out the new home that I want to buy yet. And if you're with the market being as hot as it is, I don't know if I can find the home that I want and be ready to close, at the same time, I'm going to close on the sale of my house. How would you overcome that kind of objection? The timing issue,
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and that's a great objection to talk about, especially right now, because there are so many sellers who are scared, rightfully so, that they're not going to be able to find the right home afterwards. So this is how I handle it every single time. Again, storytelling, right? That's story time. So what we're looking at, why are we concerned? Because there's a low inventory. Okay, so what does that look like? What are you looking for in your next place? Because this is a very common objection, and I tell them it's a common objection. And start going into more details. Okay, what are you looking for? What home do you need to sell? Let's start getting it ready. While we're looking at homes on the market, let's start getting your home ready to put on the market. And there's several different options that you have when it comes to this. Believe it or not, yes, there are still options out there. So I've had people, again, storytelling, right? I have had people tell me, Okay, well, I really can't list my home until we find the next home. Okay, cool. That's fine. It will make it harder, and it's going to make it harder for our offer to get accepted on your next house if we haven't even put your house on the market yet. Okay, so as long as you go into that understanding, does it happen? Yeah, absolutely, it can happen. And yes, we can absolutely talk about that and know what we're getting into. I just had somebody just last month. I've been working with them for a year. They could not sell their home until they found a next home. It took us a year. It took a lot of offers, but we found the perfect home. It checkmarked all of their criteria, and it had been on the market for a little bit of time. So we were able to negotiate the price, and we were able to negotiate a contingent sale on them being able to sell their home first. And it worked. We were patient. We found it. They understood what they were getting into. So we did that. I've also had people where they're okay with renting for a little bit. They can get an apartment for 6 months until the right house comes on the market. Let's just sell your house now, not even worry about that contingency. Go move into an apartment for a short amount of time. Go find another rental home for a short amount of time. Live with your mom, live with your family. Had a client earlier last year that sold their home, moved in with mom for a couple months. We're planning to do it for a year. Couldn't do it for a year. Started looking for homes. A couple months later, boom, done. Found the right home. We were ready to go because they had already sold their home. So there's options, and it depends on what is best for you and your family as far as what we're going to do to proceed forward. So lots of stories. I talk a lot.
Oh, thanks. I mean, stories overcome objections. So I don't disagree with the tell a story, make it relatable to them, but make it your story, right? I mean, you can use other stories, but the minute you have your own story, it gets even better. So
yeah, you know, and
have to be able to tell stories.
And for you guys, now you have that story to overcome that objection. You can say, hey, look, I know of an agent close to me who had both of these scenarios happen in the last year. And it was okay. It worked out for each individual, depending on what their needs were. That was a great objection to overcome. Any other objections that you guys want to tackle before we start getting into some Tom Ferry scripts?
I have an objection from a buyer.
Okay.
And she's like, well, I just signed a new lease for her apartment. She's active duty Navy. Okay. And she actually works in admin. And so my response to her was like, well, I don't think that's a really big deal because you are also able to get out of your lease. But is this correct? Was this okay for me to do? Because, you know, they can have orders made in order to break a lease.
So that's unethical. Having orders made to break a lease, that's unethical.
Yeah, so she said that. She mentioned that. She's like, I'm an admin, I can get orders. And so what do you know, it's unethical.
So think about it from the other side's perspective, right? So if you are a property manager or if you are a property owner and a military person came and rented your property, you're expecting that lease to stay in place for however long.
Right.
Somebody makes up orders just because they want to leave and not pay you any fees. That's unethical. If you can be on the other side and see that's not right, then it's not right. So what I would recommend to her is most leases have an out, but there's a fee. So be prepared to pay that fee, or we can try and work it into your closing costs. And if, depending on the house that you find, sometimes sellers are still paying closing costs, not often, but sometimes they are. Sometimes we could get the seller to cover that.
Or you can up the price and have the closing costs paid if the appraisal will allow it. So you could always come back and be like, okay, can we up it this much to have my closing costs? So it can be done, but sometimes it has to be done after.
Did y'all hear that?
Can you repeat?
So the next point was, you know, a lot of times closing costs are worked into the price as long as appraisal will allow for it. So if you up the price. So say you need $10,000 in closing cost assistance and $2,000 to break the lease.
Mhm.
That's high. And the house is listed at $250,000. You could offer $262,000, assuming that the appraisal will allow for that amount of increase to finance in your closing costs and the lease break.
Okay.
Now, is that common? Not really. Right now, a lot of sellers want to see that you have cash on hand. They don't want to pay your closing costs, and they want to, if you don't have $2,000 in your bank account to pay your lease break, tough cookies. That's where a lot of sellers are at, but not everyone.
But it's worth it.
It is absolutely
They're
worth a
not
try.
having anybody doing it, so.
And it's worth a try for you as an agent to get the experience and get the practice in writing offers and negotiating and telling the seller, the listing agent, because every time you talk to the listing agent about your client, you are telling that listing agent exactly what to say. So you've got to be very careful about your verbiage. Listing agent, same thing when you talk to the buyer's agent. So when you're talking to the listing agent and you're like, hey, look, my buyers are so well qualified that they're going to offer over asking price. And, you know, yes, they need their closing cost assistance mailed in with that, but here's why. Here's this, here's that, and only share the information that your clients allow you to, but give the listing agent the script to give to their sellers as to why they should choose your client.
Got it.
Don't make up orders, because that's also going to look shady as all get out to the seller. Like you just signed a lease and you just got you made orders up to then stay in the same area. Sellers are able to be picky these days. They're not going to want somebody who's shady buying their house, because they're going to know, they're going to research, it's going to come up. Nothing's ever hidden. Everything comes up all the time. As far as just signing a lease, yeah, I would have her read the lease, read what the lease break terms are, and be prepared to pay whatever fines or fees come with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to move forward with that one. I was just like, wow, okay, well, I know it's possible. I mean, so many people have done it, but it just became a little uncomfortable at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, we can move forward. No, I would never recommend that you break your lease intentionally with false orders. Let's be prepared to pay the correct fees to do this the right way, because that's how we would want to be treated. And we can, finance it into the home purchase or into closing costs, whatever the case is. Mike, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I didn't even realize I was off mute, but I actually had that type of a situation come up when I was working at a BMW dealership. We had a Navy commander get false orders to break out of a BMW lease, claiming he was being stationed overseas. And about 6 months later, I was talking to NCIS about it because he got busted. Ruined his career over it. So
yeah. Unfortunately, it happens, but we've got to hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Yep. And that scenario, I wasn't even aware of it. He just came in and, BMW said, financial said, this is what you need to, affect the early lease termination. And, I guess ex-wife or somebody got mad at him and turned him in. And next thing you know, he was out of the Navy, dishonorably, retired or whatever. I don't know what they did to him, but he was no longer a commander of the U.S. Navy anymore. Threw his career away over an $800 a month lease payment that he had 2 years left on. So don't get yourself tied up in those situations. So.
Any other objections that you guys have come across in making calls, in talking to people, in being a buyer or seller yourself? As I'm talking and you're thinking, put yourself in somebody else's shoes. What objections would you have? What would you want to ask me if I was, interviewing to be your agent for either buying or selling?
I have a quick question. Sometimes just meeting people, and for me, I mean, I've had a couple of a sale and a listing, but for other new agents, when they're meeting with listing people, because it came up to me prior in the past, why should I use you? You don't have any experience.
If you do have experience, you've got your partner.
And that's what I say. And plus I'd always say too, I got a whole office team behind me to help
Mhm.
out. But a lot of times, like the new agents, because I remember when I first started and I had a listing and I was just able to talk to them and let them know that, hey, I have a whole team working with me.
Exactly. You've got a whole team working behind you. When you're brand new, you've got your partner who's your mentor working with you. You know, my partner and I have this many sales between us over the last year. Yes, it is. It's not about, in this industry, you can also tell them in this industry, it's not about how long you've been in the industry. I know agents who have been agents for 60 years. Okay, they did a transaction last year. I did 30. So you tell me who's more experienced in today's market, because we're not looking at 60 years ago market. We're looking at today's market. So you tell me who has more experience. Just saying.
Yeah, the other thing I would use to your advantage as a new person, and even I would use it, even though I've sold countless things over the years. And when I had a license, years back, I did some transactions. The new card can be played in such a way that people want to help people out, right? So find a way to remind them that, when you started off in your career, you were new too, right? At some point somebody gave you a chance, but the beauty of letting me work for you, not only the expertise I have available in my office, the Keller Williams story that you can use and tell your mentors and the support that you have, but you're not as busy as an agent that might have 10 listings and 4 buyers or 3 buyers and 5 listings. So your attention to them to help them sell their property and provide the services they need, you're not going to be as divided as well too. You'll have more time and focus.
Right. You can say, I'm hungry. I'm hungry for your business because I am new and I'm going to work that much harder to earn your business. I'm going to work that much harder to your customer service. And yeah, my partner and I have got all this experience, but I'm going to be dedicated to you.
Yep.
And I'm so hungry for what I can do for you. Put it back on them. Like, I'm here for you. I'm here to serve you, because we are.
Yeah. I mean, certainly you could hire an agent that's got 10 listings right now, but they're also working with 10 other people, where I've got the expertise available to me in my office, but my attention is more solely focused on you. I'm still going to try to find new clients, but I've got the time to devote and the energy to devote and the hunger to help you sell your house for the highest and best possible price as quickly as possible.
But on the flip side, when you do have 10 listings, you use the objection that, hey, look, if you want something done, ask somebody who's busy.
Yeah.
Because they're the more likely ones to get it done. So the objection can go both ways. And that's actually on one of these Tom Ferry scripts. I was trying to find it. But y'all,
I mean, a listing
literally all I
appointment
did
and a
was I
buyer's
looked up.
appointment is a job interview, right? It's really what it is.
Yeah. So y'all, all I did to find these Tom Ferry scripts is I looked up common real estate objection, and this popped up. It's a Tom Ferry file that you can download and just look through. So let's see here. Where was that? Yeah, you're too busy. You have so many listings, and we want someone that can give the attention we deserve. So Tom Ferry always says, he'd level shift. So he'd switch it around. He'd say, I can appreciate that, and you probably haven't had a chance to think about the advantage I have over my fellow agents. See, he says it too. It's funny. That's funny. You should say that. Benjamin Franklin said, if you need something done, ask a busy person. So Tom Ferry said it. Benjamin Franklin said it. There's that. When you do get busy, you say, look, I've got more listings. I've got more signs. I'm getting more calls on this street because I've got more signs, which means that I'm bringing more buyers. So if I'm bringing all the buyers, it's working more towards your advantage. But until you're there, you use the I'm busy, I'm hungry, or I'm hungry to get your business, I'm hungry to be busy, but my partner and I have all this experience behind us. And I've got my whole office staff rearing to go. That was a great objection, Celinda. Great job.
So how would using the argument, you're not just hiring me, you're hiring Keller Williams, Hilltop, because essentially that's what you're doing. You know, you're hiring that brokerage to list your house, right? I might not have the experience.
Different
Instead of,
verbiage,
you know,
same thing.
yeah, I mean, I'm just using, you know, how would that way of saying it, you know, I mean,
Different
versus
verbiage,
I'm
same
hungry.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're hiring Keller Williams because they're not hiring you. They're hiring your brokerage. It is a brokerage agreement.
So would that be a good time for the know your numbers part of it too, right? You know, Keller Williams last year in the Hampton Roads area sold X number of listings. You know,
We
you're not
sold,
hiring me. You know, you're hiring Keller Williams.
yeah, you know your numbers. You know, Keller Williams is the #1 production in the world. We are top by volume. We are top by transaction numbers. Like we're top, we're #1. And the reason for that is because we're really, really good at what we do, and we're really, really good at training, and we're really, really good at marketing. And essentially what it comes down to, selling a home is marketing, price, condition. When you hire an agent to get the home sold, to get it under contract, we're in charge of really one of those things, and that's the marketing. And we do that part really, really well because we are KW branded, because we are #1 in the world. All of the fun KW stuff. We're just #1. The price and condition, yeah, we're going to talk about that. Price, you're going to go to Kara's class and you're going to learn all about CMAs. Condition, though, is up to the sellers and what they do to their home and how much they listen to you to get the home ready to go. Anything else you guys have come across?
I came across a family, a couple, a military couple as well, whom he has he's just recently went out to sea, and they're planning on buying once he gets back. I asked them, I said, well, if I was able to find the the perfect property and the perfect house, would you object to, or would you be willing to, make a decision even while you're out to sea and allow your wife to, to make those decisions for you? But now I know that he probably is like the decision maker. So I should get his email and just stay in contact with him while he's out to sea, correct?
So you set it up, you started setting it up right, and then we need to just follow through. So you need to discover who is the decision maker. And a lot of military families, the wife is truly the decision maker because they have to be, especially while the husband is out to sea. So what you want to do is you start it off great. Like, hey, if I could find your perfect house while you're out to sea, would you be okay? Like, is this something you are open to handling, to, your wife handling, to your wife making the decision? And a lot of family dynamics, the guy's going to defer to the wife anyway and say, whatever she wants, happy wife, happy life. I know that's what my husband did. He deferred to me for the decision making on which house we chose, and I'm not a decision maker. He's the DC personality. I'm an SC. I still made the decision on which house we bought. So you set them both up on a search. So you set them up on a search where it's going to both of their emails. Now, while he's out to sea, he will not oftentimes receive emails. There will probably be weeks on end where he will not receive emails. What you will need to do is, if you find the right house, she'll need a specific power of attorney. And before he goes out to sea, I would even get a power of attorney that says she can write a real estate contract. So it's got to be specific and include real estate, not just a general power of attorney. And then once you find the right home, it needs to be a specific, an even more specific power of attorney for that particular property, that she is allowed to do everything and sign for him at closing. And he will need to wet sign it and send it back, and she will need to bring the wet signed copy with her to closing. So it sounds great, but it is very complicated when they are out to sea and they don't always have access to internet, and they don't always have access to be able to mail things, and things get lost in the mail all the time when they're coming from the ship. So yes, you start it, but you also prepare them for what it could look like if you do find the right house.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, especially in our area. Any other things?
No, I'm good.
We'll look at a couple of these. Let's see. We've talked about, will you cut your commissions? Other agents will. Nope. Nope. Now it's different when I'm on the buy side, right? There are certain agents, and I don't know if you guys know this, but in the MLS, you can search, part of your search criteria can be looking for the SBC number. And if it's less than 3, there are some agents who won't show a home with less than a certain percentage that's in that SBC. I don't do that. I will, when I'm representing my buyers, I want to represent my buyers fully. And whatever commission the seller's offering is what I'll take. Some agents will make their buyers pay the difference. That's not how I like to do business. But, you know, that's going to be up to y'all. Sometimes people will scoff at our transaction fee, and that's another objection that we can get. And it's a fee that's just paid with every Keller Williams transaction. It doesn't go to me. It doesn't go to anything. It goes to Keller Williams to pay for our admin, to pay for the filing services, to pay for keeping everything kosher in the way it needs to be and keeping the files for as long as we need to keep them. It's just paid with every transaction, which is what it is.
The dreaded processing fee from the car world has made it to real estate. Couldn't
Been here
resist,
for a
sorry.
long time. Yeah, as long as I've been in business. There's tons of ways to handle that one. We talked about most of these already. Exclusion in the listing contract in case our company, friend, neighbor wants to buy it. Nope, we don't do that. We only do exclusive right to represent. And if we find the buyer, then that's what that is. Why should we choose you? We want to think it over. We want to think it over. That's a good one to talk about. So you want to make them more specific. So ask them, well, what is it that you want to think over? Are there any concerns that you have that I haven't addressed? Is there anything that, you know, we went into this meeting and you feel like I haven't talked about it yet? What is it that you're wanting to think over? Dig deeper. Ask why. Ask what. This is another big one. Agents not showing the home themselves, and agents from our office not showing it. This is where we talk about the lockbox and security of the lockbox, and why we make sure that this is where you guys got to know, like, okay, when we put a lockbox on your home, only licensed agents can access it. So only licensed agents are going to be able to get in there. And I'm going to put a special code on that lockbox that they have to call me for, and I won't give them the code until you tell me it's okay that they're going in there. A lot of times right now, this is an easy objection to overcome because you say, hey, look, with COVID regulations, the less people in the home, the better. Now, there's going to be some people who fight back and say, well, because of COVID concerns, I want to make sure that everybody in the house is wearing a mask and booties and gloves at all times. And how are we going to do that unless you're there? We provide masks, gloves, booties. We tell everybody beforehand, if there's anybody, if it comes up where somebody doesn't do that, then we can address it at that time. But most agents in this day and age are listening and abiding by COVID regulations. whenever we ask them to inside of a home, especially a home that's still occupied. Anything else, y'all? Before we end off? All right. Well, if there are
Thank you,
no other
Jordan. This has been
questions,
great.
Yes, thank you, Jordan.
you are very welcome. I'm glad that you guys all joined me today and super excited for any objections that you guys come with. And, you know, maybe next time we can have a little bit more interaction and going back and forth. Role playing, I'll always be the agent. You guys just, you know, come at me as a client. The meaner you are as a client, the more we grow. So I will talk to you all later. And
Real quickly, you said you got that objection stuff through tomferry.com?
It wasn't, or not, sorry, Mike Ferry.
Mike. No. Okay.
Was I saying Tom Ferry the whole time, y'all? I'm sorry.
Isn't it Tom short for Mike?
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all humans.
I'm lucky to remember my name most of the time, so we're good.
All right, y'all. I'll see y'all next month.
Thanks, Jordan. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone. Have a good
Jordan.
day.
Thank you.